Pleasant day, welcome to the African News. We are broadcasting from Canada. I am Sandra Asante. Let's take a look at the top stories. Ethiopia's Tigray region at serious risk of famine, top UN official warns. Hundreds flee home as volcanic tremor hits Rwanda. Zuma pleads not guilty to corruption in South Africa. Somali leaders make progress in election talks. Full details of these stories coming up after the break. You're welcome back from the break. Thanks so much for staying with me. To our first story, there is a serious risk of famine if assistance is not scaled up in the next 2 months. The UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator Lou Cox said. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed sent troops into Tigray in early November to disarm and detain leaders of the regional ruling party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front. He said the move came to respond to the TPLF attack on federal army camps. More than 6 months later, Lou Cox said the fighting and abuses continue in Tigray, where the specter of a famine has been hovering for several months. Concrete measures are urgently needed to break the vicious cycle between the armed conflict, violence, and food security, Lou Cox said in his 2.5-page note on Tuesday. I urge members of the Security Council and other member states to take any steps possible to prevent famine from occurring. Today, at least 20% of the population in that area face emergency food insecurity, he said, adding that destruction and violence against civilians continue even now across Tigray. In the 6.5 months since the start of the conflict in Tigray in early November 2020, an estimated 2 million people have been displaced. Civilians are being killed and injured, he stated. Rape and other forms of apparent sexual violence are widespread and systematic. Public and private infrastructures and objects indispensable to the survival of civilians have been destroyed, including hospitals and agricultural land. The UN official estimated over 90% of the harvest was lost due to the looting, burning, or other distractions, and that 80% of the livestock in the region were looted or slaughtered. We move to Rwanda, and hundreds of people are believed to have fled their homes in Rwanda's western town, Gisenyi, as the volcanic tremor continues. The tremors follow Saturday's eruption of the Mount Nyiragongo in neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo. The Rwanda CMS Monitor reported earthquakes and tremors on Tuesday and Wednesday morning. The authorities have appealed for calm and said they are taking measures to assist people in danger after dozens of houses were destroyed. Schools, banks, markets and shops have been closed in Gisenyi. Some residents spent Tuesday night in the open out of fear that their houses could collapse. More people were seen on Wednesday morning at the town's main taxi park and trying to leave Gisenyi towards east. The town's own hospital has moved patients from its wards to other hospitals in western and northern Rwanda. The situation is really bad. We are in fear since Saturday. Look at my house. They are all down now. We want the government to come and help, said Mujubi Karugu. We will now move to South Africa, and South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma has pled not guilty to corruption charges at the start of his trial at the court in Pietermaritzburg. Looking frail and speaking quietly, the 79-year-old pleaded not guilty to all 18 counts of racketeering, corruption, fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. The charges related to the event more than 2 decades old in the early days of South African democracy and to a huge and deeply controversial armed deal. Mr. Zuma and his allies insist the case is political. Indeed, the former president insists he is the victim of a far-wide conspiracy involving his enemies in the governing African National Congress, the ANC, and far beyond. Crowds have gathered outside the courthouse here in Pietermaritzburg, Mr. Zuma still enjoyed some popular support. By now, there is overwhelming evidence of the corruption that flourished during his decade in power, and many South Africans are simply keen to see justice being done. We are still on Mr. Zuma's trial, and hundreds of supporters of former South Africa President Jacob Zuma have gathered outside Pietermaritzburg High Court, where his corruption trial has started following multiple delays. Mr. Zuma is accused of receiving bribes from a French arm manufacturer. He has always denied any wrongdoing. Mr. Zuma's son, Duduzane Zuma, told the BBC that the former president has always been ready for the trial. He has been innocent from day one, I quote, "He has been ready for case from day one. People should not be saying he is delaying his stay in court. He was merely exercising his constitutional right, which he fought for. If the constitutional rights are denied, I mean, what was the use for him fighting for the rights in this country? He must exercise the very same right he was fighting for." Now, story in Somalia, the Somali government has said that federal and regional leaders have made progress on elections talk and are set to sign on agreement on government. Spokesman Mohamed Mwalimu said the outcome of the meeting were being finalized for the signing ceremony. The four-day talks were chaired by Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Robel. Progress has been made every day of the conference. Mr. Mwalimu said the leaders have been meeting in the capital, Mogadishu, to resolve the protracted dispute over the electoral processes which led to violence last month. Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, better known by nickname Farmajo, the president's term of office ended on 8th of February. Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, better known by his nickname Farmajo, remains in office because of the parliamentary passed last year. This is it. This is Roger the Curtains on African News. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you some other time.